everyone. Welcome to day 4, night 4 of our AIM Schoolwide Summit. We are happy to have our presenters on, some of our presenters from the day on again to discuss Montessori administration and some of the topics that were went over in the presentations today. We hope that you're enjoying the summit. If you have not had a chance to view the presentations yet, you still have time. They're going to be available free on demand for a week. So you still have time to log on and watch all of them. If a week is not enough time for you, you can also purchase the All Access Pass and have access for 3 months. So there's still time to enjoy all these presentations and learn more about the presenters. Tonight with us, we have a great presenter. So we have our AIM Program Director, Karen Walden, with us. We also have Sheldon Reynolds, who had an amazing presentation on the essence of Montessori that you can absolutely check out. We have Lynn Cherry, who presented with me and is a good friend of mine and is an administrator in Ohio. And Clarissa Pollock, who is an administrator in Arizona, who has just started her own nature school. So her presentation is all about ways to incorporate nature and also the starting of her school and that journey that she's on. So we're really excited to have this conversation tonight, and we're going to structure it the same way we have the last few nights. If you're watching the replay, please feel free to write comments. I'll be checking the social media streams later and can answer questions or direct them to the presenter. If you're on live, feel free to comment, ask questions. When we see them, we'll address them. So I will hand it over to Candace. She'll moderate and pose questions, and we will all answer and contribute the best for our ability, right?
I'm sure y'all will be brilliant. All right, I'm going to start off with a question from Karen's presentation. I just thought it was a really good one to get us thinking just about group dynamics and building our staff and everything else. What strategies have you used or have you seen used in your schools to create a clear and supportive leadership structure within the school? You're muted, Karen.
Hi.
I was trying to unmute you as you were trying to unmute yourself.
So the strategies for supportive leadership, obviously frequent check-ins, weekly, bi-weekly, annual meetings with the executive team, whether that means one-on-one, I need this, you need this from me. This is going to take some time outside of the time you have scheduled for other things, but I think this takes precedence over other things. This is an important transition to boost your team and make it a priority. So, get it in writing, be able to go back to it again and again, and perhaps make it part of the interview process.
I like that.
Leslie Kennedy, who's not on today, but has a presentation with her husband on today's lineup. And they had a great strategy that they used just to build kind of communication flows. So they will actually, the first Friday of every month, they have their whole staff. They don't have school that day, and they have their whole staff get together and they do professional development, and they create this kind of environment of trust and respect. And I think that's another great way to kind of establish good leadership and powerful leadership in a good community. Like Karen, you said in your presentation, to have a community that is successful, you need the teachers to be happy and successful and at peace as well.
Absolutely. Okay, so kind of to go along with that, how can school administrators structure leadership to support both new and experienced mentorship? I must say mentorship, not leadership. So how can mentorship be structured in Montessori schools to support both new and experienced educators? And how do you cultivate those mentoring relationships? Because I know that they can sometimes be hard.
In my own experience, I feel like sometimes a formal mentorship can feel it can be helpful, but it can also come with a bit of social awkwardness or a bit of stiltedness in the, here's your relationship, do this relationship. Whereas I think formal and informal is also really, really nice to have going on. So just a community culture of being open to having conversations with each other when it's not scheduled, so that it is this really genuine, I know I can go to this person for this question and this help, and so that real community building within your school. But that has to be encouraged, right? You don't want people to feel like they're not supposed to be just talking to each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. Do you have a mentorship program in place? If not, organize one. If you have the one that's not working, evaluate why it is not working. Is it mentee versus mentor? Are they paired up ideally? Look maybe outside your organization. So it takes a lot of work.
Yeah, I've seen in the last couple of years, like in Denver, like we have a formal coaching system, which is pretty cool. So some of our best teachers are halftime teachers and halftime coaches. And
Okay.
that's been a cool model that we've had. I've also had a building where like I've had my people stay for like the last 7-8 years. And you kind of get to a point to where at first we had our best people coaching, but now it's like everybody's kind of on similar levels. And we've done a lot of work around like thought partnerships is something I took from UVA, University of Virginia, where like our staff kind of has a problem of practice, but they can figure out who they want to actually work with. And it's more around like consultancy and collaboration than exactly coaching. So those have been like some cool and different ways that we've kind of addressed that issue.
That's a really cool model. I like that, like coaching halftime, teaching halftime. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. So in your really established and well-staffed school, you have less of a mentorship program and more of a collaboration, innovation, and it's moved from mentorship into that. I like that.
Yeah, but it's also part of my design, which is there was an article that came out from this group called TNTP, probably around like 2010, 2012, something like that. And it was kind of talking about irreplaceables, and more irreplaceables in the sense of like sometimes you have employees that are like so great. It takes, I think they said the average is 5 to 7 hires to replace them if you ever do. And so a lot of the stuff that I have planned at my school is I'm like trying to capture veteran teachers or like new teachers that are just like rock stars. And a lot of my planning is geared towards them as opposed to just novice teachers. So everybody gets it, but I'm kind of planning on like what would push some of my most veterans, some of my most established, some of my like rock star teachers person need coming in.
Can you give us a high level? I think that's really fascinating. Can you give us a high level, if you guys can hear my dog barking, I'm sorry. Can you give us a high level, like, how do you plan for that? How do you recruit teachers in a notoriously not excellent paying field? How do you create that?
For me, it's kind of been modeling, I would say kind of the thing that I strive to do and forget to do and kind of come back to it is like, are my people experiencing what I want my kids to experience? And so, like if we're doing group initiatives or different stuff like that, an adolescent program, like, do I have my teachers experiencing the same thing that I want my kids to? And so part of the reason why I named my school Center for Talent Development, because it wasn't just about like tapping that talent and finding that joy for students, but it was like, how do adults find it as well? And like it's jokingly, but it's like one of these things where I kind of run like a teacher rehab for people that were like either in the, like public settings that weren't working for them, or they're just looking for a different type of education. And I think like setting up an environment to where you want the adults to experience what the kids are going through, like for my training at CM Step, like we had to do every single thing that we expected from kids. So when we went on Kinder, when we were doing our outdoor experience, like we had the same thing as them. We couldn't take showers. We had to eat the food that was there. We had to go through and do everything that we expected. And I think that does build a culture where the adults experience the joy that they're supposed to pass on down to kids.
I love that.
I had not thought about that. I always think about retaining students, but I have not thought about the problem of retaining teachers, especially after like you sometimes sponsor Montessori training, or like you want to keep those good people. You don't want them to disappear. You're muted, Candace.
Because the dog was barking. I'm really good at this. Do you guys have any like key areas of professional development that you ask your faculty to focus on? Or do you just kind of go with what they want to do or what they need to do in order to help them stay relevant and effective in their roles? And then what about like administration wise? Do you require your administrators to do a certain amount of professional development to encourage that continuous learning and growth? What does that look like in your school communities?
If I'm talking too much, just shut me up. But I'll go. One of the cool things for me is like, since I came back to Denver, I'll probably even say once I was doing my Montessori training, of being able to get outside of the building and to get into like other disciplines, other fields. And so I've had like stuff with CM Step. I've kind of mentioned UVA, some different places like that. I just went to this cool charter school up in it's called Intellectual Virtues Academy in Long Beach, and like took some practices from there. So one I've seen is like doing an adult field study. So if I want my kids to do field studies, like how do I have my adults do it? The other thing that has really changed my practice is just narrowing what we work on to be like 2 changes per year. So we'll do an instructional change, we'll do a cultural change, and just being able to like get clarity and tell people what we're working on, narrow it to just 2 things, focus on those 2 things throughout the year. And then I always have to come back and ask myself, like, as we're going through change, did I set up the right change? And, you know, if it's not landing right, I have to ask myself the question, am I just further along in the change and I need to help people through it? Or did I plan for the wrong thing? And like an example of this was when COVID hit, I was all on about how do we teach? I had this whole teaching plan and all this stuff. And then I was realizing it wasn't landing right. And when I talk with my staff, it's because none of them knew how to teach virtually. So what I had planned wasn't the right thing. I didn't need to give them more time to figure it out. I just actually needed to change what I was working on. So again, similar to a Montessori practice, how do you like follow the child? How do you follow like where the adult is?
Lynn, you're muted. I feel like you're.
I think that our staff and faculty at AIM would really love it if I only implemented 2 changes a year. I just wrote that down. 2 changes a year.
Lynn, go ahead.
Yeah, so talking about professional development, at our school, we have units. So each unit, we have 4 of them, and our professional dollars are limited. And so we use our title funding, and then we also have a bucket that we supply our own professional development dollars through our budgeting accounts. And what we try to do is have the unit or a team of teachers each year it cycles through, so that entire team gets to go to a professional development together. And when the entire team hears or experiences something new, they tend to latch onto it more, and they support each other to make sure it's not a one and done. So each year we focus on, like I said, one big team workshop or, PD, and then the whole staff might be doing something as well, but we use those dollars and they know the cycle of it's year one. And so this team gets to go year two, they get to choose a PD to attend. And it helps really, just those dollars really count when it comes to making sure that new practices are implemented.
That's a really good idea.
I love that idea of the whole team together,
Mhm.
because then it's not like you go off and get these great ideas and then you're having to kind of convince everybody else that this crazy thing is going to be great.
Mhm.
That's what I was thinking about Clarissa's presentation. And I've worked with Clarissa in the past, and she's an AIM graduate. But gosh, what are our people that have these talents and they have these resources and they can bring to the table things for curriculum or just outdoor space or anything, even just going on an outing. So it's good to have that collaborative process. And I think that all these administrative webinars, these sessions brought that together where I felt that all of you could bring to the table things that would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. I was inspired by everything. And I was I want to go observe all these schools. I want to Sheldon, I want to go observe your school. I want to go to Gilbert Nature School for a day. I want to see Leslie's school. And I think this is that's something really awesome too, to think about in the Montessori kind of methodology, the observation that it's good for all of us to see other schools in action too. And that we can learn so much about different practices and how to meet the needs of Montessori teachers and administrators if we can go and see what's happening in their environments. So
I think that's a huge thing of as working on building my second adolescent program, and a lot of I had a lot of challenges. One was I was just changing things up, but there was a narrative of there's one way to do secondary Montessori education, and anything that wasn't that was heresy. And it's you're not doing it. And I'm they all, for the most part, adolescence program, I still haven't seen one that it looks the exactly same across the country. And honestly, that was my hardest challenge, was showing people that there's not one way of doing it. There's different ways of doing it. How do you do it tailored to part of my keynote was around that. How do you do it tailored to your school community, the times in which they're living in, the needs of your kids? Because I couldn't even replicate what I did, and I didn't want to, but I couldn't replicate the building I built in North Carolina to what I'm building in Denver. There might be some things that are similar, but they're completely different programs.
Yeah, and the problem too is the reason adolescent programs look so differently is because there's such a vast array of Montessori schools, and some are private and have lots of funding and lots of space, and some are public and have much less funding and less ability to do the same kind of things. Some are totally rural, like farm schools. So it's you have to meet the environment that you're in. You have to meet the culture and the situation and find a way to problem solve and make it a Montessori adolescent environment, even if it's not traditional, if there is a traditional way. I don't think you can really say there is, but.
And it sounds like part of that process makes it that much more valuable for the community, right? Because if it is tailor-made for that, then it's going to serve the kids who live there that much more, because it's exactly what they need, what works there. Getting that place-based.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean
Oh,
to
sorry. I
interrupt.
was just going to say that makes it even more of a place-based, model where it does have to fit where it is.
I was going to ask, because I think this is a really great follow-up question to the direction that the conversation's going. How do you actively engage within the local community and build partnerships to not only enhance your school's visibility and reputation, but also help your students and help your teachers get out into the community and do things?
I have two examples from this current year. So our school is situated in a beautiful area, and our metro parks are really special to the Ohio area. And so we partner with the metro parks because of that outdoor education. We have that like-minded care for the earth mentality. And so we will bring the metro parks into our school and spotlight that and their presentations on social media. And then we can tag ourselves and they will tag us on their social media when we go to the parks and do field trips or going out experiences at the metro parks. But then also our middle school is very, they're very passionate about service. And so they every year pick different organizations that we raise money for. And that's a great way for our students to go out and see the nonprofits and the service projects that they want to help with. And then those organizations oftentimes will tag us on their social media. So it's a win-win for everybody, really.
And Lynn, how did you go about forging those relationships with the parks?
With the parks, it was really, we started an outdoor education program at our school called L-Stream, and we needed help. And so I reached out to, I just, Googled all the people at the metro parks, and they had an education coordinator who took the bite, and we formed just a relationship together. We're just a friendship. And then it's just from that friendship, that partnership grew. So it's pretty organic. I think when you find something you or your school or your teachers are passionate about and reaching out, you'll find that people want to help each other.
Yeah, especially in the nonprofit sector. I feel like we all help each other. Like everybody's open to it.
Yes, for sure.
It probably was a lot about saving money as a small school, but we went to the municipal airport and we learned about airplanes, and the children got to get in the airplane and they loved it. And then we had the fire department come, and we had the police come, and they came to our school. And then we had, I'm in Montana, so we had people come with horses, and the children got to get on the horses, and none of it was at cost, but it was really a connection with the community. The community was involved. They understood, like, oh my gosh, there's this Montessori school here. They want us to come and do stuff. And so it was a reciprocal thing, and it ended up being really, really good for our small community. So things can be done in maybe not ways that you would think, and free, which is great.
I've had an interesting challenge in that the school I opened in North Carolina was by the time I left, it was like a third white, third black, third Hispanic. And it was cool in the sense of everybody in the building couldn't be their own culture, but I did know that I had to tailor things different to those three different communities. And how do you bring kids on board with that? And how do you do stuff in a not more of an equity manner, but more of an equitable manner? What does each group get? How do you do things as a whole, but also recognize people are coming from different backgrounds? So that's been an interesting challenge. And the new building I have now is starting to get more diverse. And how you engage with community, how that looks. It's a fun little challenge to have.
What are some of the best ways that you've seen Montessori educators address the diverse learning needs? Because I think as time goes on, schools are getting more and more diverse, and students need different things for learning and everything else. What are some strategies that you guys have all seen that do that very effectively?
I would actually say I've had a challenge with it of where I ran into where people, especially for students of color, people try to be their advocates instead of having the kids have their own agency. And so a lot of it has been having to switch the narrative of like doing things for these kids as opposed to like they have a voice. Like, how do we get? So it was a big push for me to get like a school staff that like kind of reflected what my students look like. Um, moving away from like we're doing stuff that we think these kids need to like how do we how do we give them their own voice, but also how do I still be like the invisible hand where I like provide them structures? Because often it's like, oh, Montessori, you're free to do whatever. And it's like, no, you're not. Like there's structure. So how do you like honor their voice without speaking for them, but still give them supports when they need to? So I would actually say I face more of these challenges in Montessori settings than like when I've been in traditional.
I'm sure there's a big educational component of that, right? With the community and with staff and faculty as well, of like, let them have a voice, let them have their own agency. And that kind of ties back into the community engagement as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, I live in Montana, and so it's it's Montana, right? So it's just, a pool of ranchers, maybe you would think. But through my Montessori experiences in private schools, I got all sorts of children, and it was fantastic to have diversity because it's great to have diversity in thought and just people. And so it's tough in certain places, but I think that it's a challenge, and it's a blessing to have different thoughts and different people come into a Montessori community. So I love that we're embracing children and parents and communities coming together for that end.
Does anyone else have any? Carolyn, you're muted.
I was saying there's always a challenge just to like educate parents about Montessori, right? Like it's not the easiest concept to convey to parents. And then when you're trying to convey to parents of different cultures and different languages, then it's difficult. It makes it even more difficult. So yeah, that's a challenge for sure to get parents on board. And then especially if you're dealing with parents of different, diverse parents, different socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds, it can be really challenging.
I'm sure that attracting and of course getting advertising and marketing, but what kind of events have you found most successful in attracting prospective families to your school? And then how do you keep in the back of your mind the diversity piece of that as well when you're organizing and promoting these events?
Clarissa, I'd love to hear from you because you're just starting. Like, have you embarked on anything like
How are you recruiting students, Clarissa?
You're muted.
You're muted.
So most of our marketing, it's quite funny because I'm in love with this concept, right? So I wanted to name the school like, I don't know, something. And my husband, who's in marketing, said, no, you need to name it Gilbert Nature School so that when people Google search you, they can find you. And honestly, that's all of my marketing. I've barely done anything. I just put up the website, and people when they hear about nature schools, they just search for a nature school near me. And then I'm having people contact me just that way. So I've also found, and that was kind of just lucky, right? That was available for me to name the school that. But what I have found is when I'm posting on social media, it felt a bit awkward for me to say like, hey, I'm starting this school and all these like mom groups and things that I'm in. But if I just kind of say something, and then people can click into my profile and then they can like see what I'm doing. I found that to be much more like natural for me because I'm not so outgoing and wanting to say like, hey, come see what we're doing. But what I've just kept a list of everybody who gets in touch with me. And then just last weekend, we hosted a pizza party at the preserve where we're running the program. And so prospective families came and they got to meet each other, which I thought was really nice because my program's brand new. you're kind of experimental, right? If you're joining onto this, you're saying, okay, this is a new concept, it's a brand new school. Do we want to do this? It is a risk. And so I feel like for the families to get to meet each other and see, oh, like everyone here shares these values, shares these visions for their children. And then people felt very confident when they wanted to actually enroll, because it was like, oh, you're going to be with so and so. You met her at the pizza party. And so it was just very intimate. Again, I'm very small operation, so we could just have a pizza party and people came, and it was really fun.
That's awesome.
Okay, so I have one last question that I want to ask. So what advice would each of you give to people aspiring to start their own school, whether it's Montessori or nature school, based on your experiences as an administrator?
I can go because I'm very new to starting it. A big thing for me has been having people to talk to. So people who have kind of walked either this path or similar paths in starting something. Just to have that person you can call up and share your ideas. And then I say do it, because the landscape right now is shifting so dramatically. And it feels like if you have a passion for this niche, whatever it is that you want to offer, other people probably do too. I would say go for it. That was the best advice. So I reached out to somebody almost a year ago who started a nature school in Massachusetts. And that was her advice to me. She's like, just do it, just try it, just do it and see what happens. And I did. So that's what I would pass on. Just do it.
I love that.
Yeah, I do too. And I'm so excited for you. I think it's amazing. So
thank you.
After doing it twice, because I've did it where I built it with the community and that's what they wanted. I've also this current one I'm in, like I was stepping into a place that some people love but wasn't working. And so like there's different approaches. You kind of have to know your community. Like, do you have a vision of in your mind and you're trying to get people to come along, or do you not know what it looks like, and how do you bring people along? I would say the startup is fun, it's hard work, but also I've been to the place of like, once you have established a school, so like kind of looking past the like startup, because that's the fun part. Like once you get to a place where you've established a name, you've established a brand, and you're like hopefully successful, like building on that success is like one of the harder things that I wish I would have planned for. Because it's easy to get people to buy into the first part of what it looks like. But when you do something well and you see like, oh, I might need to grow, I might need to change, I might need to innovate. I've seen it harder to get people to kind of go to that place, to want to keep continuing. So I would say same thing as Clarissa, like, yeah, go for it. It's fun work. But then also have in the back of your mind, like the sustainability piece and the like continuously improving piece. Like those are things I wish I would have planned for when I started like my first school that I'm doing now this is my third school. Yeah.
What would that kind of planning look like if you could give examples?
I think it's like constantly, the reason why I've stayed at my second school and decided to take on 2 schools was the group that I'm working with in my elementary school. Like there's an understanding that like you have to keep improving. Like you have to keep adjusting or you die. Like things stop. And so kind of working in that like fail forward mentality, kind of always working at like, we'll like never reach the mountaintop, but like that's what pushes us. That's kind of the mentality that my second school has, and why I still continue to be there. And like we've gone through COVID, I'm going through budget cuts now where I gotta like cut 7 staff members. But like for the most part, like people know, like we have to get better. We have to innovate. We have to look at what we were doing. As opposed to like, hey, we've reached this place, we've made it. Like, yeah, we're good. So I think just having that culture of like we're continuously going to be learning, like society is continually going to be changing. Like those things, like how Maria was like, all right, my elementary program's good, but like secondary, what are we doing with this? Like, I don't like how high school is. I don't like how middle school is. I don't like how university is. Like something has to be different. And like, that's what I stuck on. Like, that's the part of her I like working with. But then I see people like that push back against it. Like, no, Montessori is like in this box and it's always working. I'm like, she probably wouldn't have did that. So how do you like keep people geared towards that? And it's different for each group. You know, I can't say like I have a silver bullet for it. Because for some people, some of my people are reaching burnout. Like, do we have to keep changing? Yeah, we do. If you're looking to like stay the same, then you know this ain't gonna be the place.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, that was one of my favorite parts of your presentation was, do you want to be Montessori or do you want to be like her? That is such a crystal clear direction to take, is that constantly checking back. How can we make this better? Love that.
Yeah.
I like
I do
that.
too.
Perfect.
That can apply everywhere. Not just in the classroom or in schools.
I did my research. Can I just say,
Yes.
you know, I watched all of you, and I that was the task today, was watch all the videos, you know, see how are these things connected. They are connected. You know, we're all speaking the same language. You know, Sheldon was talking about, you know, specifically, I can't just do what I want. You know, I have to work with people. And that was my piece, you know, working in a collaborative relationship. And the same thing with Clarissa, like tap into people's, you know, their values and the things that they're good at. You know, where's my teaching team? You know, and then Clarissa created her own nature school. So there's just so much. And Tiffany, she's not on with us today, but everything that she was saying, respect for the child, well, respect for one another, and just working together in a classroom, you know, it all goes hand in hand. So it's really endearing to see that all of the things that we are projecting for Montessori, whether it's administration, you know, with their administration piece or any of the other levels, it really goes hand in hand. So it's very endearing.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So much for your contributions. We really appreciate you taking the time. I know administration is busy, and thank you, Sheldon. Thank you, Clarissa, so much, and everyone else who's not on that presented. It was amazing.
Thanks for having me. And now I feel bad that I didn't watch everybody, so now I gotta go watch.
Fine.
You'll want to. They're good. They're amazing. So,
Cool.
all right.
Thank y'all. See you.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Thank you.